There's actually two quotes in the Jurassic series, and I'm not a big movie or Jurassic person, but two things that relate to weeds in those movies. One is life finds a way, and that scientist said that, and the other is something to the effect of just because you could didn't mean you should. Today we had the Crop and Pest Management Field Day out in Columbia at the Bradford Research Center, and we had a lot of weed management topics on display. One of them is thinking about new uses for old herbicides. We have a multi-state study that summarized metribuzin rates and data, and I guess the take-home message from that is just that we can probably pretty safely go to higher rates of metribuzin than we're currently using in our soybean systems. We probably need to think strongly about doing that. It's a pretty good, effective, economical herbicide. So that was one topic. We also talked about resistance. We always talk about resistance. We've got resistant weeds. We actually talked about Johnson grass. We screened a bunch of Johnson grass in Missouri for the first time in my career. We have good news. We only came back with one out of like 16 populations that we'd really call resistant. So even though last year I was getting a lot of complaints and calls about Johnson grass, I think it's just because it's a tough perennial weed and it's not resistant. And just this whole idea we talked a little bit today about, we are really spending a lot of money and in our soybean herbicide programs, and it's not getting any better. We just keep on going up and just being more sustainable in our approach to water hemp. So the reason we're spending more on weed control is really simple. One of those graphs was normalized for 2001 or whatever the year was versus 2023. And what I mean by that is we took out inflation, and yet we're still spending so much more. So why? That's your question, and that's a good question. And it's a real simple answer. It's because we're spraying so much more. We didn't used to have to spray that much herbicide back then, just 20 years ago, and now we're having to spray all of this because of resistant weeds, because we can't get them under control. And so we're adding more active ingredients to the acre, which it costs more per acre. I just don't know when it's going to stop. And then I guess the last topic I can think of, at least anyway, it would be herbicides and drones. I'm just trying to get the audience and everybody out there in Missouri to think that herbicides and drones is different than fungicides and drones. When we spray fungicides over corn or soybeans, it's often with an airplane, especially in corn, and we were already spraying it at 2 or 3 gallons per acre. So there's really not a whole lot of difference. The drones are still looking pretty good, but herbicides, we don't go across many acres and just spray 2 or 3 gallons per acre, and it really makes a difference. And so I'm a little bit concerned about how fast this is moving without looking at the data, because we do not see as good a control in most cases with drones in a crop setting with herbicides. We are having people get into drones that don't know as much about the herbicides and agriculture as a whole. And so our pesticide training program are really trying to integrate this into their training, and we really need to think about this as industry. We need to think about how we move forward with this, because it's kind of moving without us right now.